So first off, I'd like to hear from a pro side who's advocating for race-blind college admissions.
Well, first of all, I think the issue is that many people of these races are part of education systems in their first couple years when they're like elementary to high school that are not at the same level as other races. So immediately they're at a lower point because their level of education hasn't been the same. So by allowing them to have this race blind or not race blind and allowing them to be in there, they're then equaling that playing field.
Yeah, essentially the whole social Darwinist survival of the fittest idea doesn't really apply to America in that there are people like African Americans and Latinos who have been historically discriminated against. And so affirmative action is kind of about how can we level the playing field and how can we give them the opportunities that they aren't given, not because of something inherent about them, but because of the situation they've been born into.
I would agree with that, but I think that's on every level. Even if there wasn't affirmative action, if you show up somewhere and say you're the only black person, you're kind of filling a quota that has to be there for an image.
Yeah. So addressing a point that Amelia made early on, there is obviously an issue with the quality of public education throughout the United States, and we live in a fairly privileged area with generally high-quality schools, which gives us kind of an advantage. But do you guys think that race-blind college admissions into Maryland public colleges and universities would be effective if there was not an attention placed on early education? So do you think that they would have a chance of thriving in these colleges if they didn't have the same early education that other races did, or people from different socioeconomic groups?
I don't think there would be a chance of thriving just because they're not getting the same initial education. Imagine going into college without taking any AP classes.
Mm-hmm.
You'd be like, what is this workload? Why do I have to read so many books? It's just, you have to be prepared. And I don't think lower income educations, and that's not doing it for them.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting point to discuss, is not just affirmative action, but the consequences of affirmative action. So in addition to the stigma that we talked about, there's the question of, are we really helping these people when we put them into a school where they're vastly unprepared compared to other people just because they grew up in a poor area and they didn't have access to the same education? Is it worth it to help these people? Is it even really helping minorities when we put them into these situations?
I think the true root of the problem is the fact that the education levels aren't equal. But I think because that changing the education is very difficult, especially in the situation the country's in, I think affirmative action does help because it does at least give them that opportunity to be able to improve. Because I think even if you had lower education levels, you could still go in, and if you worked very hard, I still think that you'd be at a similar level. And so then that would also diminish people saying, oh, wow, a person came in and did a lot of work and they're of that race. Maybe I was wrong when saying that race doesn't deserve it. So I think it has that 2-in-1 where they actually get physical opportunity, they also get that social opportunity.
Mm-hmm. Inversely to what you're saying, though, do you think that if, say, they get in, they do very well, do you think if, let's say, that trend continues, would affirmative action be taken away because they say, okay, now that they're in and they perform at that level, we don't need affirmative action anymore?
Well, it's interesting to discuss using race as a commodity. I think that's kind of a lot of what it's coming down to. Is that do you think it sets a dangerous precedent to use race as a commodity and to commoditize people based on their race or socioeconomic status?
Yeah, and I think, again, it's not just about affirmative action, it's about what happens after. So, yeah, there's the question, do we phase it out, kind of? Does it become less relevant, or are we always going to be dealing with, the remnants of our history with African Americans and other minorities? And, at what point do people stop needing help? I think that's an important question to ask.
I think it does help, but again, going to that social stigma part, I think that's going to be one of the issues. Even if it helps people, it's going to still create this divide between the races because it's still going to be something like, oh, well, I have to get in and you can't and stuff like that. So I still think I think it should be, weaned off over time because if it gets better, and like the education gets better and everything, then that will help close the divide between, like the competition of the races.
Right, but at the same time, I feel more the question would be not when are we going to stop, when will people stop needing help, but when will they stop being oppressed? Because those initial schools are not doing their jobs, and even in higher institutions or even public schools that are have a better education, like B-CC, for example, there's still disparities that exist. And I think before you answer that, you have to answer that before you answer.
So a lot of great points have been made by both sides of this argument, and a lot of different points have been brought up. That's all the time we have, but we encourage people to show up for the B-CC school-wide debate on whether or not Maryland should implement a system of race-blind admissions into Maryland public colleges and universities. Thank you.
Hello and welcome to How to Sound Smart. I'm your host, Stella Green, and today I'm going to help you navigate that introvert's nightmare that is the holiday party season. People are gathering with friends, chatting it up, and discussing all of the salient issues, crime, foreign affairs, and the like. And here you are, you don't watch the news. How on earth are you going to manage to sound smart in all of these casual social situations? I know. You'll do it by following today's lesson. Play to your strengths. Is everyone discussing a contemporary issue you don't understand / refuse to pay attention to? Instead of trying to fake your way through conversations, distract from them with your knowledge of historical nonsense. Speaking of historical and seasonal nonsense, our topic for today is the origins of Santa Claus. This long and frankly often frightening journey begins in the Mediterranean. Santa started as a Greek bishop alive in the 4th century whose name was, you guessed it, St. Nicholas. This man was the patron saint of children and was known to bring gifts and also to be magic. St. Nick's role as gift giver and child protector can be traced to two hopefully exaggerated stories from his own life. The first is nice, though I'll grant a little dated. He brings a poor family 3 bags of gold so they can afford dowries for their daughters. The second one takes a turn. There once was an innkeeper. One day, 3 boys walked into his inn. Then, displaying the absolute worst customer service of which I am aware, the innkeeper killed the boys, chopped them up, then proceeded to salt, otherwise season, and pickle them in his basement. Sensing this, with what one must logically conclude is some of that aforementioned magic, St. Nicholas rushed over to the inn, and once on the scene, he resurrected the boys. Then, hopefully, he called somebody about that really crummy innkeeper. Now on to Europe. St. Nicholas was very well liked, and thus had a pretty good cult. This pretty good cult of his eventually brought him, well, not him because he was dead at this point, but they brought the idea of him over to Italy. By the time St. Nick hit the European scene, the Norse god Odin already had the flying magic gift man market pretty cornered. However, the people of Europe found room for Nick. Over time, the two sort of merged, but kept the name St. Nicholas. For a good run, St. Nick was the gift bringer. Then, during the Protestant Reformation, he and his fellow saints experienced a bit of a decline in popularity. Even so, everyone still wants gifts, right? So they decided to see about getting St. Nick a replacement. Then came the monsters. St. Nicholas was leaving some pretty big shoes to fill, and the general thinking seemed to be, what fills big shoes? A big monster. During this time period, we saw such Santa prototypes as Rough Nicholas, Ashy Nicholas, and Furry Nicholas. All of them were variations of a flying, bearded nightmare man, and all of them either beat or facilitated the beating of children. Thank goodness for the Netherlands. Up north, St. Nick never fell out of fashion, and the name Santa Claus actually comes from the Dutch Sinterklaas, is probably how you say that. They were, in fact, the ones who eventually gave Santa a lift with them over to the New World. Regrettably, we also got the demons. Possibly as a result of the demons, Christmas didn't catch on right away in North America. Christmas as we know it, in fact, didn't start to take shape until around the 19th century. At this point, some writers and poets decided to make Christmas a family holiday, because I guess all of a sudden it's their business. And as a part of this process, they set about rebuilding Santa as the kindly old elf we all know and aren't terrified of. In 1821, an anonymous poem got us pretty darn close to modern Santa, featuring a secular gift bringer wearing shaggy furs. However, this particular depiction of Santa kind of took us 1 step forward, 2 steps back. For example, instead of flying around through the wintry night skies like had at that point been established that he did, this Santa rode around in an earthbound wagon with just one lone reindeer, bumming everyone out. He also unfortunately continued to endorse child beating, but didn't seem to think it was worth it to do it himself. He'd just give the kids the switches. These kinks were eventually hammered out, and the journey to Santa Claus was almost complete. However, there were still some visual elements that needed to be agreed upon. Throughout the 19th century, many versions of Santa underwent some truly stunning weight fluctuations, appearing as everything from minuscule to gargantuan, and hitting every possible weird variation in between. In one picture, he even bears a shocking resemblance to George Washington flying on a broomstick. The political cartoonist Thomas Nast is often credited with having invented Santa's image, but the best description I can give of his Santa Claus is a nearly spherical garden gnome wearing ill-fitting fur leggings and sporting a truly disgusting beard. I personally would let this creature nowhere near my future children. The last pieces of the puzzle, the red coat and the being human-sized, didn't come until 1931, courtesy of illustrator Hayden Sundblom. Sundblom was an artist for a certain cola company, a wink. Around the 1930s, this cola company decided, what does this holiday need more of? Soda, specifically selling it for money as is our custom. That's right, Santa's iconic red and white are the colors of that oh-so-familiar cola company. Copyright law. Thank goodness fully developed and not evil Santa worked his way back over to Europe and squished the crazy flock of Christmas demons terrorizing the European children when he landed. The end. Look, it's snowing inside now. That's festive. Probably not great for the books, though. That concludes this episode of How to Sound Smart. Remember, play to your strengths. Is everyone talking about how violent media is affecting America's youth? Nope. Here comes you, and now they're talking about how Santa spent most of his life as a monster. Once again, I am Stella Green, and this has been How to Sound Smart. Happy holidays.
Hi, I'm Nelson French, and welcome to B-CC's first annual debate lab. These are my two contestants, Max Cohen and Daniel Crystal. Max, please introduce yourself.
Hi, Nelson. I have the distinction of being Montgomery County's shortest ever varsity athlete.
I'm a senior, and I'm a rec sports superstar.
Thank you both. In this competition, each contestant will have 20 seconds to answer the given argument in the accent provided. The first argument we have is Superman versus Batman in a British accent. Max, would you like to start us off?
Listen, there's really no contest here. It has to be Superman for me. Batman is a regular old bloke lying down the streets. He's got no superpowers. Superman, what a lad, I have to say that. He's done so well. He can fly, he's strong. What more can he ask for? Superman, no doubt.
Daniel?
Superman didn't do anything to earn his wealth. Batman, on the other hand, to earn his powers. Batman earned his wealth, and then he used that to create an amazing, badass persona. And he's just as good as Superman, and he's a normal guy just like the rest of us.
Max, that was an excellent accent and an excellent argument. First round goes to you. In round number 2, the argument is, are Sperry's stylish? And the accent is Canadian. Daniel, start us off.
Well, start us off. Sperry's, they should be on a boat, right? They should be used on a boat, and that's the purpose. But the fact is that, most people just wear them around here in high school, just wear them to school. And that's fine, but we just have to realize that they're stylish, but they're stylish and they should be used on a boat if you're going to wear them. Don't be a poser. Don't be a poser.
Max?
Sorry to the founder of Sperry's, really nice guy. I mean, wouldn't hurt a fly, and I totally respect him, but I'm going to have to say sorry because they're not good. And I hate being mean like this. It's really, but sorry, I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. Sperry's not for me. Kids these days, Sperry's no, really. Can't say it. Oh, I'm really sorry.
Daniel, I'm going to say that round goes to you. Our third and final round, the topic is Papa John's or Domino's, and the accent is New Jersey. Max, start us off.
Well, the thing for me is that the New Jersey Papa John's not quite up to the standard of my own pizza. I grew up in a really authentic New Jersey, New York pizza, and for generations in my family, and I'm taking Papa John's, Domino's. They're a disgrace to the pizza industry. Neither of them for me. None. I'm having none of it. None.
Daniel, your response?
You got your New York, you got your New Jersey, your prosciutto, whatever you want to call it. And, all that crap, that's so much better than Papa John's or Domino's itself. But if I had to choose between one, it'd probably have to be Domino's just because I've been eating it my whole life.
God, you're a disgrace.
Daniel, I want to say that round goes to you. Congrats on winning the first debate lab. Do you have any words you'd like to say?
Shout out to my family, and if there's anyone watching this, thank you.
Max, any words as the runner-up?
It's a great network. It's an honor to be here. Unfortunately, can't get the result today, but we go again next week.
Thank you to both contestants, and we'll see you next time on Debate Lab.
I know I should not pester you with such trivialities, but when injustice is wrought, injustice is wrought. And to tell you the truth, this time I'm not going to let it stand. This time I'm getting distressed. So is that a diner? I'm not going to mention the name of the diner, lest I be construed as some shill corporate plant going around promoting diners and other such proletarian eateries. But I was at a diner nonetheless. First of all, they give me the late night menu, not the dinner menu. There I be treated like a patron, the late night menu. You know, 'cause I'm just some louse, some scum of the earth, here, the late night menu. Why, what a privilege. As a person up at 11 o'clock in the evening, I feel both honored and blessed according to the rules and ordinances of the aforementioned late night menu. I could profit from ordering toast at 3 in the morning. What an insightful and delicate feature placed upon this gastronomical memorandum. I sit there, I'm amongst friends and close acquaintances, a man who dare listen to his mother and doesn't eat a heavy meal late at night, I order a grapefruit. Yeah, a grapefruit. I have no shame. I am a great fan of the grapefruit. You know, fruit, and this is coming from an expert, is a very unpredictable thing. I have devised systems and methodologies to the fruit. I've determined the pear. This is a risky fruit. It's prone to becoming mealy, and the skin can become easily bruised. The orange, its skin is thick, and it takes the thumbs of an ape to get through the peel, but nevertheless, I get through. You go to a diner, you can't order an orange, and why? Can't they cut in half and serve it to you on a plate like the aforementioned grapefruit? But the grapefruit, despite being bitter, this is a fruit, it's pure. I order a grapefruit. I sense an opportunity. While my table mates are looking at a flock of geese outside the window, I order. A friend of mine, although takes this moment to his advantage. While others wait for their food, I am satisfied with my grapefruit. They suffer, and I rejoice. I have pity, but do I care? They decide to order large meals, while I rejoice in my portion. So, what are you ordering? I'm not hungry. All right. So you now think I'm not going to order and that I'm just going to colonize this booth. When did I ever say that? It was implied, mister. How much money do you have? $3, $3.25 if you count the nickels. Well, I'm not paying. We'll split. He spreads this ill word that somehow I did not order a grapefruit there. I instead, like some criminal, like some ganef, sneak in a contraband grapefruit. And like some fox, like some beggar, like a man too cheap to order $1.50 of fruit at a diner, cut it myself at the table and served it to myself. First of all, if I may have the right to be my own counsel, the logistics of this fictional crime would have been impossible. I would have had to plan beforehand to bring with me a grapefruit and, like some idiot, roam the streets of Bethesda with a tumoroid lump in the side of my pocket, like some schmo without a head on his shoulders. Secondly, I would have had to anticipate that I would have liked grapefruit that evening. You know, fruit, and this is coming from an expert, is a very unpredictable thing. Frankly, I am insulted, travesty of justice. The whole night, in the diner booth, I receive askance glances and debauched countenances. So, you ordered a grapefruit. I'm watching my weight. You're gonna have to do a lot more than lunch if you want to lose that good of yours. I know, it's not as if almost every member of my family who has passed died of a heart attack. Could be worse. They could have all died slower deaths. Thank you, thank you. It always takes that special perspective on life. Adding insult to injury, the waiter does not bring me one of those really nifty serrated spoons. I'm given a blunt spoon, further questioning the legitimacy of my claim, suggesting my guilt. A serrated spoon would have been the proof I needed to show that my grapefruit was sanctioned by the establishment. Even at my grandparents', I at least have the pleasure, the unrivaled pleasure of a serrated spoon, the ability to cut through flesh and pulp. What do you mean I didn't order this grapefruit? I'm just saying it's interesting. You see that menu right there? Idiot! You have something against me now, don't you? You come here, allege I didn't order this grapefruit, leave me a broken man. Look, I didn't see you order it. That's all. I had a heavy lunch. Should I be socially ostracized just for having a heavy lunch? My friend, my accuser of a small crusader who fancies himself as a l'ami de peuple, who goes around claiming that he is a socialist, a person who shall remain nameless, he thinks he's special. He orders a milkshake, refuses to share, and then throws out half in the garbage. Then, and this really takes the cake, leaves without paying. This is, of course, after he took a wad of cash out of his hand as thick as my fist and starts counting it, $20 bill after $20 bill. Must I also mention that this man did not help pay for the tip? I don't think so. Who is the true criminal? Who is the true debauched miscreant? He'll be left unnamed for now. But if I'm criticized for my choice of citrus again, I will not be as lenient.